Welcome to Begin, Build, Blossom, your business journey with Clarita, the podcast where we will discuss valuable insights, resources, and motivation to fuel your entrepreneurial spirit. Let's build a supportive community together. Subscribe now to Begin, Build, Blossom, and let's embark on your business journey. Happy New Year and welcome to a brand new episode. I'm so excited to kick off 2025 with you. A new year always brings fresh opportunities, new goals, and the chance to reflect on the journey so far. We're setting the tone for what promises to be an exciting and inspiring year ahead. Whether you're here to learn, grow, or get a little motivation, you're in the right place. Let's jump in and start the year strong. Let's pause for a moment to hear from our sponsors. You've built a name for yourself through hard work and dedication, but does managing the business side feel like a distraction from your true passion? Are you dealing with unmanaged finances? CME Accounting LLC is here to help. We specialize in organizing your financial records, allowing you to focus on what you do best. With organized books, you'll have more time for what inspires you. Whether that's expanding your influence, building relationships, or simply enjoying life. Don't let unmanaged finances hold you back. Reach out to CME Accounting LLC today and let us help you thrive. Visit our website www.cmeaccountingllc.com or email us at admin@cmeaccountingllc.com. All right, let's jump back into our conversation. Welcome to another episode of our podcast, Begin, Build, Blossom, your business journey. Today, we're very thrilled to have Quinn St join us. He's a dynamic food and digital entrepreneur from Cedars, Castries, and Lucia, and he brings a wealth of experience in hospitality, event management, and media. He's the owner of Delicieux, a snack business, and the creative force behind Game Changers, a media company and podcast that shares inspiring stories of entrepreneurship. In addition to his own ventures, Quinn works with Lucia Times, providing media services, and he contributes his logistics expertise to Nexus Events. His passion for youth and business development, combined with his media savvy, makes him a true game changer. Welcome, Quinn.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Probably the best one I've ever had.
Oh, well, I'm really happy to hear that. Well, thanks so much for joining us. So I saw you because I think you interviewed someone that I was following on Instagram. I went in to listen and I thought, oh wow, we're very we're in the same space basically, and you're doing such amazing work that I thought I should reach out to you and just have a conversation. And of course you're from St. Lucia, our beautiful island. So it's always great to connect with fellow St. Lucians, and I just love to see you in this space. And thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Like I was telling you before we actually hit record, I love spending time with people in the similar space as I am, people in the content creation space in general, but particularly fellow podcasters. I think this platform provides us not just an opportunity to share our own voices, but to share the voices of others. I think that is my goal as a human being in general, just to help other people live the best version of themselves, and podcasting provides that. So I'm happy to be here.
Okay, well, thanks for helping me, the best version of myself here. I really appreciate that. So we're going to get started with a segment we call Rapid Fire. We were talking earlier about how it's not always so rapid, but we'll try our best. Okay, so let's start with two words that describes you. One that describes you now and one that described you as a child.
Okay, one that describes me now, I would say ambitious. One that described me as a child, that's a very good question. Inquisitive is the word I'll use.
I like that. You do have to be inquisitive to ask those amazing questions that you do on your podcast. So I can certainly see that. And tell us the name of your business or businesses and what you do.
Absolutely. So it's very crazy that different people know me for completely different things. My small business, the snack business, is called Delicieux. I started that, I think, sometime in 2021. It is a snack business that caters to St. Lucians while bringing things from outside of St. Lucia, or having local products with a twist, right? The whole idea is to provide the world to St. Lucia without St. Lucians having to travel the world. So that is the snack business. We used to be in two stores in Castries. One of the stores has unfortunately closed down, and the other one is temporarily closed down for repairs. So Delicious is on a pause right now. However, hopefully in the future we'll be back up and running. So that's Delicious. I would say my baby and my biggest passion will be Game Changers. Game Changers is a media company that I have started, whose flagship platform is the Game Changers podcast. That's where a lot of people also know me from. The Game Changers podcast is a platform that provides opportunities for game changing young people to tell their stories. Right now, I say young people, it's not only limited to youth, right? So everybody can be inspired by these game changing stories, but it is mainly catered at young people. So that is what Game Changers is in a nutshell. And yeah, that's pretty much the two.
Great, great. And for purposes of this podcast, since Delixir is on pause, we will go ahead and focus on game changers. So any questions will apply to that business of yours. So can you tell us what you were doing before you started in business?
Okay, so before I started business, I was unemployed, to be honest. I had I was just not working at the time, and I felt the need to find a ways to make money because I felt pretty much useless at the time. I had a lot of time on my hand, and I just needed to do something for myself. So I decided to embark on business, but obviously every small business needs capital. And the way I got my capital for the first venture was to actually sell plants. So we had some seedlings, some smaller plants from a Surinamese cherry tree. I decided to buy some potting bags, and with the help of my mother, I went in town, I started selling, made some money, and then I started process of registering Delicieux and doing taste tests and that type of thing. And then before I know it, it started to take a life of its own. And yeah, that's how I started business. And then a little bit later, and this is the first time I'm actually telling this story for the Game Changers, I actually had found employment in what I thought at the time was my dream job. But things were not working out from the very beginning. And I struggled in that position until they decided it's best that we part ways. So I was depressed, came home very, very sad. It was in the middle of COVID as well. So, finding jobs was very, very difficult. Again, I had time on my hands. And during that time, I was listening to a lot of podcasts. I was listening to a lot of media, consuming a lot of content. Most of us were consuming a lot of content during that time. And I remember going to the gym, and I was in the gym working out and listening to an audiobook actually at the time. And I was thinking to myself, oh, wait a minute, I can do this. I know I can do this. I can maybe even do it better than what I'm listening to right now. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to use the little bit of money that I have to buy a mic, a little lavalier mic. I would have gotten a webcam, and I would have gotten a small ring light. And then I put a list together of individuals who I think would be good interviewees, and I launched it. I just sent out the information out to my friends that, hey, I'm doing this, and I launched it. And yeah, again, the rest is history.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. I'm sorry that you went through that, with the job, and I'm glad that at the end of it, something great came out of that. So we will definitely be talking more about that list and the launching and the information to friends, because it's so parallel to what to my own story that I would love to learn more about yours. So I know in the bio we said that you also do contract work. So one of my questions would be, are you doing this full time? So the answer is no. Would you like to add some more context to that?
Okay, so That is an interesting topic. So my background, many of your listeners might know my voice from media work. So I used to be employed at Choice TV, and before that I was at Hot 7 TV as a journalist. And that is a job that I still do. However, the dynamic is a little bit more flexible, I say. So yes, technically I do it full time, but it is flexible enough for me to have other opportunities to be on your podcast and to do other things as well. So yes, technically it's I don't want to say it's full time. It's but everything that I do is part time. Let's put it that way.
It all adds up to full
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Let's put it that way.
All right, we'll take that. And how long have you been in business? I know we referred to it a little bit earlier, but
Yes. Officially from the inception of Delicieux, I'm going to talk about when I actually registered the business. So from the inception 2021. Yeah, so it's 3 years.
okay. And game changers?
2022. That happened in January 2022. I will never forget when I started it because it was a rough period in my life and it was a period that I needed something to do. Not money really, just something to do with myself because I was bored out of my mind, and two, I knew that I had a lot of things on my mind that I wanted to express and questions that I wanted to ask fellow entrepreneurs. So I will never forget when I started that.
Great, thank you. And what's one of the highest highs, one of the best moments you've had in business so far?
Oh, good question. The highest high is for, since we're focusing on game changers, the highest high that I've had was probably my trip to Trinidad. I went to my former school and I hosted a podcast episode on the campus and just reminiscing on how far I've come through that podcast episode just by having conversations with fellow schoolmates, fellow schoolmates on the campus where we went to school together was probably the highest high. People might think, okay, well, the highest high might be a financial high. The biggest, maybe the biggest order I got from Delicieux, or maybe the biggest guest that I had. But for me, that was the highest high because it really gave me the opportunity to look back as to how far I have come, and I've really learned to embrace the small moments in the process as well just because of that experience, because I've really learned that it's really a journey and it's a marathon, not a sprint, and we need to be patient with ourselves as well. So that is the highest high for me.
Wow, I love that. I can see how that would definitely be an amazing moment. I'm glad that you had that experience. And on the flip side, what's one of the lowest or not so much of the best moment that you've had?
Right. Whenever I think of bad moments, I automatically think of the food business, unfortunately, because you know that people's tastes vary. Although the majority of people love what you do, a few people might not. I mean, like I said, people's tastes vary. So some people might not like it. So when I think about that, I think of probably a bad review that I've gotten, or maybe I think of a period where I just wasn't making any money, and the business was very dry. So maybe these are the low moments, but I don't stay in either of these moments. I don't stay in the high moments and I don't stay in the low moments because life goes on and you have to find ways to deal with the emotion, sit in the emotion for a little while, but then move forward from it. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's quite something to learn. I think you learn as you go too, because how long do we sit in it? How fast do we move on? All of those things come to mind, but you do learn as you go. And the important thing is to keep it moving. You handle your business, you deal with what you need to deal with, but you keep it moving. So, thanks so much for sharing that with us. So we'll now move on to the begin segment. And that's where we would like to know, I know we talked about the beginnings of both businesses, but even before that, was there a moment where you thought, okay, I am going to be an entrepreneur?
Yes. When I was in secondary school, I did all the business subjects. Business always fascinated me. All types of businesses fascinated me. I never knew what I would have gotten into or what would have really piqued my interest, but I always knew that I wanted to get into business somehow. I didn't know, like I said, where exactly what the path would be, but yeah, I always knew that. Even as a child, I probably knew that given the games that I used to play with my brother, it always surrounded us, owning a business. and whether it be selling food, whether it be a building company that we said we had, even as a like a little child, I remember doing that. So yeah, it always fascinated me.
Okay. And I know in St. Lucia, I was part of Junior Achievement. There was Young Leaders. Are there any of those that you were involved with as a child?
Interestingly, nope, I wasn't involved in any of them. Looking back, if knowing what I know now, I probably would have been a part of some of these clubs, but no, I wasn't really a part of them. My obsession with the business, I guess, was more the stories behind the businesses rather than the actual business itself. Maybe that's what was my obsession. Now, that is not such a bad thing, because I mean, media work is storytelling, right? And that is what my background is in. So that's not such a bad thing. However, as you actually get into the business stuff, you understand, okay, it's a lot more than that. It's about knowing your numbers. It's about being aware of are we being profitable? Does this business even make sense? So yeah, you learn as you go, but I wasn't a part of any of these things when I was younger.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Now, looking at the steps that you took when you decided, okay, I'm going to start this particular business. I know you mentioned that for Game Changers and the podcast in particular, you started a list of potential guests. You sent information to friends. You launched the business. Can you just walk us through, okay, that moment in the gym where you were like, I can do this and I maybe can even do it better. So now sitting here as the owner of this media company and the podcast host, just kind of filling the gaps there for us.
So, like I said, the journey began in the gym. I was alone in the gym that day. Interestingly enough, I'm alone with my thoughts, and then I decided, okay, well, what is the basic things that you need to get this done? I always think of, okay, what is the minimum that I can do today to achieve what I want to achieve in the future? So yeah, like I said, I started writing down what exactly do I need in terms of equipment, in terms of content itself. For equipment, I mentioned the equipment already. So the ring light, the lavalier mic, and well, at the time, the webcam. I didn't know better than that. Now, knowing now, I would not advise anybody to buy a webcam per se. But yeah, so that was for the equipment side. For the content side, I knew that I needed to connect with people. Interestingly enough, I have a lot of amazing friends who themselves happen to be entrepreneurs at the time. So my list was really my friends, about 10 of my friends. If you look at my first 10 episodes, all 10 of them were my friends, like people who were just my friends, right? And yeah, I put the list down. I started contacting them, scheduling dates, scheduling times, and then we sat down for the interview. I put down some questions, some very basic questions that intrigued me, and I asked them these questions. And what I've also realized is that you can ask 100 people the same question and you'll get 100 different answers. So it made it easy for me, because I now knew that, okay, I can literally use a lot of the same questions and ask these individuals the same questions and still get totally different episodes, because of people's experiences are different. So yeah, that is what the process was like. After I did that, no, did I actually register the business before I launched? I don't think I actually registered it. I think no. I'm wrong. I actually registered it before I launched. So I would have registered the business in February. So I would have gotten, like I said, used some of the money that I had to register the business officially, because I knew that outside of that, if it's not registered as an actual official business, it would have just been a hobby for me, and I didn't want it to be just that. So I registered the business officially in February, and I launched the podcast in March. Yeah, and that's basically the journey.
And I know, so as a podcaster myself, I know one of the things that kept me back was I'm like, I don't know how to edit. I don't even know how to put a mic together. So for me, I really got stuck. So it sounds like for you, you kind of had those expertise. Was
No,
there anything? Oh, you didn't.
no,
It was all new for you as well.
I went to YouTube University. That's why I went to learn how to do all these things. I mean, I had been exposed to it a little bit in school. In university, I was the editor of the school magazine while I was there, and while I was the editor of the school magazine, we really transformed it into not just a magazine, but a media center for the school. So there was video and audio. So I had a little bit of experience, but I was no expert. Trust me, I knew nothing about audio and video and lighting and nothing about these things. I knew nothing about these things. I found all these things out on the go. And if you, even afraid to ask you to go and look at this, but if you look at my first episodes and you look at the episodes that I produce now, it's night and day, completely different.
What was your first episode? It was, I feel like, because when I first found you, I went back and listened to the from the very first, and it sounded really good to me from the very beginning. I thought that first guest you had was quite impactful. What was her name?
So it was Edisa Eugene. That was my first guest. That is where it started. She was the first name on my list. She owned E Bamboo Creations.
Exactly, from Soufre, right?
Right,
Yes, I actually shared her information with a friend of mine who lives in Soufre who does woodwork.
right.
So you see how sometimes when you started, you never knew where that would lead, right? And look today, after a while after, I found it and found out this information is useful for somebody else. So I thought that first episode to me was great. She was very impactful. She was a great guest. And you guys sounded like you had been doing this for a while. So
Well, I'm happy it came across that way. I still cringe when I look at it, because I know that I have grown since then. My style of content has grown. My interview style has grown as well. So I still cringe when I when I look at it, but I mean, you have to start somewhere, and I'm not ashamed of it per se, because I mean that's why I'll always leave these old episodes on YouTube as well, because it always shows me how far I have grown, and when I still have a lot of room to grow still, and when I do grow further, I can always look back and remember this is where it began. So stay humble about where you are now.
right, right. And I think one of the things I noticed about your very first episode was that you had an ad from the very beginning. And some people, like I remember asking you about that. I'm like, how do you even get ads? So maybe you can touch a little bit.
Connections. Listen, all business is connections and networking, right? That is the core of business. Is me doing something for you, or you doing something for me, or we doing something for each other. That is what business is. So the ad that was there, I think it was the ad for a book, right, with my cousin, right? So she had written a book, and she wanted marketing for the book, and I said, well, I have a platform that I'm starting. It's a baby platform, but I could try to do some marketing for your book, and I decided to put the ad in there. So that's really how it started. I just decided to do my own thing and try, put an ad together. Yeah, and that's how it began.
Okay. And what about the name of the podcast? How did you come up with the name?
That's a very good question. I don't think I can remember how I came up with the name. I found it to be interesting in that, well, I guess maybe because I like games, and I look at things, everything in the form of a game. Now I know life is not a game and it shouldn't be played with per se, but I like to gamify things to make it more interesting to myself, and to see life as something that I can achieve instead of something that's impossible. And if I fail, okay, well, I can just go back and play the game again. I can restart the game if possible. But I looked at individuals who were playing that game in a unique way, and I saw them as game changers, right? And that is really how the name Game Changers came about.
Okay. And you're a game changer yourself.
Thank you. I hope I am.
You are, you are. Well, from my perspective, you certainly are.
Great.
So thanks for being part of the game.
Thank you. Thank
We
you.
can learn from you. And so we're going to move on now to the build segment.
Mhm.
And I want to get back on the ad part of things. From the book, I now see you advertise, for instance, Riverside, which is the platform we're using right now. When you first started, what platform you used and how it moved now to using Riverside, and then the side of it, how you probably got that as part of something you do on your podcast.
Okay, cool. So in studying marketing and is in studying connecting with brands for influencers and content creators, one of the things that came up all the time was to advertise something that you use all the time. for podcasting, it has become Riverside. Riverside has completely changed the way I do podcasting. I used to use Zoom when I just started, and Zoom is good for meetings, but it's not very good for recording sessions. You know that as a Riverside user yourself, you know that Riverside provides content on both ends. So it records my content and it records your content and puts it up on the cloud, right? And then the quality of content remains the same regardless of whether the internet drops or not. With Zoom, I had issues because whenever the internet would drop, that whole segment of the episode, I had to cut it out. And one thing that we hate as content creators is losing content that we worked hard on working on. So that is how I really went onto the Riverside side. I was just looking online and I just stumbled across it and I decided to try it for myself, and it has been amazing. I mean, Riverside provides you opportunities not just to record content but also to make shorts which you can share on social media through various means. It also gives you captions. It's a one-stop shop for content creation, and that's how I became a Riverside user. And then in terms of ads for Riverside, I mean, it's obvious. I love this thing so much that I would want to share it with somebody. So I found out that they have a affiliate program, and I signed on to the affiliate program, and I decided to connect with them in that regard. And yeah, I'm sharing something that I use for myself. That's something that I am paying for myself. I would never share something with somebody that I would not use myself. I think that is not very ethical, and that's something that I will never do. But Riverside has completely changed the way I do podcasting and content creation as a whole. So anybody who wants to transform the way that they do content creation, particularly if you're in this podcasting space, but even if you're in the live video space, Riverside is the place to go.
Wow. So passionate. I don't think they can get a better spokesperson.
They need to sponsor Game Changers completely. I don't need to be doing, affiliate marketing. They just need to come on a full time as a full time sponsor for me. I love that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And after this clip, I think they definitely will.
Hopefully, let's hope.
Yes, and I want to, I certainly concur with the part where you said about those magic clips, because I am not savvy at all when it comes to stuff like that. I'm able to just click a button and I have those, and I just go in and do any more editing that I need, but it makes the process so much simpler. So I personally love Riverside myself, and I even sometimes use it for meetings just because I already have it. Yeah, because I don't have the paid Zoom, not right now. I don't have it right now, so it makes it easier to just have a meeting on Riverside. So
A Riverside, exactly.
yeah, I love it. And since you've started, what's one of the boldest moves that you think you've made? So I know starting was pretty bold, but since then, can you identify another move you think has been one of the boldest you've made?
That's a very good question. A bold move that I think I made would be, I guess, hosting maybe a live episode. Well, when I say live, an in-person episode, I've done one, two, I've done three of them so far. That dynamic is a little bit different because I have a guy who I'm connected with who comes and has to record me. We have to find a setting. We have to maybe pay for the venue sometimes, right? So all that is a bit. You're actually going out there, and you don't want to make any mistakes when you're doing that because you have to look and feel like a professional while you're doing that. So that might have been thus far my boldest step. There are plenty more bold steps to come in the future, so look out for that. But yeah, I think that is probably one of the boldest steps. Another bold step is actually reaching out to guests who I would consider big time guests. Not that they are guests who would have, shunned me away or anything necessarily. But being an introvert, a lot of people don't believe me when I say that. But I'm naturally an introvert, and sometimes I'm afraid to reach out to individuals. I'm just being honest. And reaching out is a bold step, at least for me. So that's another bold step that I think I've taken.
Let's pause for a moment to hear from our sponsors. You've built a name for yourself through hard work and dedication, but Does managing the business side feel like a distraction from your true passion? Are you dealing with unmanaged finances? CME Accounting LLC is here to help. We specialize in organizing your financial records, allowing you to focus on what you do best. With organized books, you'll have more time for what inspires you. Whether that's expanding your influence, building relationships, or simply enjoying life. Don't let unmanaged finances hold you back. Reach out to CME Accounting LLC today and let us help you thrive. Visit our website www.cmeaccountingllc.com or email us at admin@cmeaccountingllc.com. All right, let's jump back into our conversation. Oh, and let's congrats on those. Those definitely are bold steps. Let's touch on those a little bit more. So first of all, the recording live. I know you mentioned you had gone back to Trinidad.
Hmm.
You had a live event. I'm well, not live, but in person recording there. And then it sounds like you've done it's you mentioned about three. So how was that first one? Like why did you decide to even do in person?
Right.
And what are the major differences? So I know you mentioned about you have to get a venue and all of that, but in terms of the actual recording and maintaining the quality, what are the big differences there, you would say?
Okay, so the first thing I would say is that generally a guest prefers an in-person episode. I'll tell you why. Because it's different than speaking to a camera on Riverside. Even if I am seeing somebody and I'm speaking to them through a camera, it doesn't have the same feel as an in-person episode. So that's one thing. The reason why I did the first one is, well, I actually was in Trinidad on vacation, but I decided, it'll be really cool. One, to give back to the school that I went to, and two, to connect with friends. I know it would have made a perfect podcast episode. So I decided, you know what, we'll utilize the auditorium. I'll just bring some friends together and we'll just sit down and have a conversation. And that is what happened. And for me, that is one of the best episodes that I've ever done. It's certainly one of my favorite, my personal favorite. And it's something that since then, obviously, I have done twice again, and I will probably end up doing that more in the future. Maybe even, who knows? I might go permanently on that side. Hopefully, I'm not letting too much out of the bag yet, but hopefully I'll get there one of these days.
And during my trip to St. Lucia, I actually contacted a studio. I had someone who would be helping me with video, but unfortunately, the on the guest side of things, I had planned one day with two guests, but one guest couldn't make it, so I kind of had to make changes to the entire plan. So at the end, it did not work out. But for me, that was one of the challenges. For instance, like being able to get guests together, being able to get the venue, and all of that. So I would say it's definitely a different ball game there. So it's nice that you were actually able to put that together and it was successful. I will definitely be trying it again. I actually had a guest that I approached and he offered for us to have the interview in his backyard. Beautiful backyard. So I'm considering it, but I'm also a little scared. So you're giving me, that motivation. So thanks for that. And so it's good to see that persons like yourself have gone ahead and you've done this, and others can follow in your footsteps. And I'm sure for me, that's actually part of how the podcast came about. It was about, as I learned, I thought other people can learn with me. So why not share those stories, and to just always hear what other people are doing is just so impactful. And the other part you had talked about was guests. You said that you're an introvert, so reaching out to guests is actually very difficult for you. So what did you have to do to change? Like how were you able to get kind of out of your comfort zone and now actually reaching out to guests?
It's really a sink or swim sort of thing. I know that I wanted success, and the only way I could get success is actually putting myself out there. So I decided, well, that is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put myself out there. What is the worst that can happen? They can say no or not yet, or at the end of the day, I mean, what does that really change? It doesn't change much. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to make this work for me, because nobody else is going to make it work for you. And it's only when you actually start putting the work together and you start put in the work behind the scenes, then individuals start to come and want to collaborate with you. So I mean, I know that I had to do it. I just had to do it so that I can give myself the best opportunity at success, and that's what happened.
So how do you identify the guests that you want, and especially guests from outside of St. Lucia? Like that's really outside of your comfort zone. I don't know if you know them personally. Was it somebody from Cambodia or
Oh, Mongolia.
Mongolia? Yes, there are a few people I'm like, oh wow, how did he meet with this person? So maybe touch a little bit on that.
So the internet is a very interesting space, and when you're in certain forums, whether it be a group on Facebook, whether it be on LinkedIn, forums that want development and improvement, because the internet can have a lot of terrible places to be, but there are also some amazing places that you can be on the internet. And when I find myself in certain groups, identify individuals and I say, okay, this person might be a good person. Or sometimes, like in the case of Tulgat, who you were referring to, he actually reached out to me, and I said, well, that sounds like something that I want to be part of, a collaboration. I mean, that I want to be part of. So yeah, that's how it works. Either I reach out or they reach out. But I think the key thing is not even the reaching out, is being in the right space to attract these individuals, or for you to actually go and get them. Because I think that's part of the biggest issues, because people are always amazed as to how amazing my guest. It is because I've aligned myself with individuals who are game changers. That's how I see it. I don't have to do so much work like other individuals might have to do, because I have put myself in a position where I can connect with individuals who are transformative. And that's how it works for me.
Right, and I'm sitting here thinking, and it's happening because you did that. You took those small steps that has now led to this big thing, and you made that first move. You did it, and you're here now. So that's great. I'm so happy to hear that. And what does your team look like?
Okay, so I am mainly a one man band. However, I do have people that I collaborate with on different occasions. So I don't have a set team yet. Eventually, it will come. I'm actually working behind the scenes on working on framework to actually build and develop that team. But it's more of an ecosystem that I utilize to help me do certain things. So that's how it works currently. And like I said before, networking is really what business is about. If you find the right connections, you can get almost anything done.
Okay, and touching on networking, what advice would you give someone for actually networking? Because we hear the word being thrown out, but what does that actually mean to you, and how do you go about doing that?
Networking is making friends. That's literally what it is. Making friends who are like minded, who can help elevate you, right? If you know how to make friends, then you know how to network. And the way I decided to do that, again, is putting myself in the right spaces, finding the spaces where I know individuals who want to uplift me, whether that be a church group, or if you don't go to church or you're not religious, maybe it is a youth organization or that type of thing. Put yourself in spaces where people want to help develop you, and want to help develop themselves, more importantly. And that's how I go about networking, and it has worked wonders for me. Just put yourself in those spaces, and networking becomes very, very easily, because you make friends in those spaces very, very quickly, because you are like-minded.
Right. And what I especially love about networking is you may be speaking to this one person, and they know their own network is what you may be able to tap into. That person may not be able to provide you with what you need, but they will know this. Like, I know somebody. And all of a sudden your network has
Expanded.
your circle is larger. Exactly. And I just love it. I really love it. And with all this growing and building and all this business going on, how do you manage like accounting and administration and all of that?
All right. So the administration, for now, I am the one who takes care of that. I manage the back end stuff. In terms of how much money am I spending, and that type of thing. So I'm the one who takes care of that. Um, but outside, so like in terms of helping shoot content, in terms of making connections with guests, I have individuals who help me out with that. Eventually, I'll get an editor. I don't have an editor. I actually do all the editing myself currently. As you would know, that's a lot of work to do. But that is what I do. Eventually, I'll outsource that as well. But in terms of administration, it's my baby, so I have to take care of it.
Okay. And as an accountant talking to someone like yourself, I'm wondering, when would you know that it's time to get an accountant?
It's already time to get an accountant. Is the question is, can I afford an accountant at this time? Right? Is there enough margin for me to actually pay somebody on a monthly basis to manage certain things for me? And the answer right now is maybe not yet, but yeah, the time will come. It's very, very close. Eventually, very soon. As a matter of fact, I might be getting sponsorships and these type of things to really, really elevate the business side of the podcast and the media organization. So yeah, it's not far away. I can tell you that for sure.
Okay. All right. And I actually just had a meeting with a prospective client. And one thing I would say is even though you're not ready yet, it would certainly benefit you to start the conversation and even see how, even though you can't bring in an accountant full time, you can at least have them in more on a consulting. Okay, so now that I'm about to get all those sponsorships, what are some of those things that I should keep in mind? What are some systems I should be putting in place? So even when you're not quite ready, it's good to have that person that could at least talk to you. You can ask them questions, just kind of start that relationship going. And in terms of struggles, is there any struggle that you'd like to highlight?
My struggle, my main struggle, and I think that's a struggle across any businesses, I find is consistency. Because some days you just don't want to work. I'm just being honest. You just don't want to do anything, and without the effort, without the the manual labor, without actually putting time and effort into it, nothing will happen. Because you have to make it happen for yourself by and large, unless you have a very deep network that you can actually connect with at that time for that specific task. So yeah, for me, it's consistency. Actually, getting up every morning or whenever I have to record or I have work to do, actually finding first of all time to do it and also the willingness to do it.
Okay, great. And that takes us nicely to our blossom section. How do you remain motivated? Because like we say, there are those days you're like, do I really want to do this today? So what changes that for you?
The way I stay motivated is I work with the end in mind. Um, like I said earlier on, I like to view my life in terms of a game. What can I achieve in the game today that will help me win the bigger game in the future? So that is how I stay motivated. I don't look at the big task. I think I know people like to speak about thinking big. I don't think big. First of all, my mind cannot handle too many big thoughts at the same time. So I rather think small, what I can achieve in terms of my objectives today, and what I can achieve and I guess gain today, so that I can develop tomorrow. That is how I can put it.
Okay. And what does success mean to you?
Success means being satisfied with an achievement for me, but it also means that those around me are also satisfied that I've helped them. Like I said earlier on, my life's goal is to give other individuals the best opportunity to live their best lives as well. So the question is, if this interview was successful, be dictated by whether you find that it was successful for you. If it was very successful for you, then that will help with the way I view success for myself. And if you are happy, then it also makes me happy. So that's how I view success. So whether I am happy or satisfied with whatever task that I was doing, yeah, that's how I see it.
Okay. I love that. So I would say for me, I think it has been successful because I've met a very pleasant young man and I've learned quite a lot. So I just really thank you for that. That takes us to our closeout section. And at this point, I'd like if you can at least give us 3 tips that you can share with someone who's maybe looking to start their own podcast or who has been podcasting and you know something that would help encourage them to keep going.
All right. So number one, I would say to be patient. I think that's one of the biggest things that I have struggled with. I still struggle with it. I always tell people that, patience is a virtue that I don't have yet, right? So the first one is be patient. All things work together for good to them that love God. That's what I believe. And they also all things work together for good, but in time. So take your time and be patient. That's one. Secondly, I would say to, like we've mentioned a lot already, to network with the right people. You cannot do this thing by yourself. It's literally impossible for you to do this thing all by yourself. So connect with the right people. Connecting with the right people brings you the best success. Finally, I would say to, and like I said earlier on, to work with the end in mind. Sometimes we get stuck in the moment and we think, oh, okay, this task is so terrible. Think about what will happen. What can I achieve if I do this task? If I overcome this period that I don't like. Think of it, for example, in the gym. In the gym, this set is very very hard, right? But in the long run, you might have the muscle that you really really wanted, right? So work with the end in mind, work with the goal in mind, and the task becomes a lot easier if you work with the goal, your end goal in mind. Yeah, that's how I think about it.
Okay, great. Thank you. And you mentioned, and we've talked about networking quite a bit, and maybe that's where I would ask you: is there someone you think that I should be reaching out to?
In terms of getting them on the podcast,
Someone as a guest, someone that you look up to, someone you think that you'd love to hear their story on here.
I have so many guests. To be honest, that is a very hard question that you asked me. What I can do is you can go through my past guests and I can send you all their contacts. I can send you all of them. One of a very good one, somebody that I'm actually really proud of her transformation and her work thus far is Jamie Young. I actually recently interviewed her on my podcast. She's a mental health advocate. That's somebody that I think you could really really reach out to. She can give you some very good insight in terms of mental health and mental improvement. I think that's somebody that you can reach out to for sure. In terms of music, I'm not a musician myself, but I'm in a group filled with musicians. Many of them who would love to be on a podcast. Some of them I have not had on my podcast yet, who I think would be perfect guests for you. So yeah, my network is pretty deep. Coming up with one name is actually pretty difficult.
You did mention Jamie Young, so that's good. Thanks for that. And it's good that you do have such a deep network. And are you open to giving of your time to someone who would want to reach out to you?
Yeah, yeah. Now it depends on what exactly they want. If it's something that would require extensive time, then obviously, you might start thinking about payment. But just advice, general advice. I've had friends who have actually started their podcast, reach out to me and ask, what do I need? What is the best way to go about this? And yeah, that's no problem. I love giving information in terms of podcasts because I like listening to podcasts. So the more podcasts they are out there, the more content I can listen to and enjoy for myself, and the more I can learn as well. So yeah, that's a light work. I'll help anybody with that.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think in terms of just that first conversation, just someone that wants to learn about your story or just having that one-on-one conversation. So he says he's open to speaking with you. So let's get the contact information.
Sure.
The best ways that people can reach out to you.
There are two ways that are best to reach out to me. First one is through my phone number. The phone number is 2870365. If you're not from St. Lucia, the area code is 1758. And the number again is 2870365. You can reach out to me on any collaboration. I'm always looking for people to collaborate with. Always looking for sponsors as well. If you want to sponsor, I'll be down for that. So that's one. The other ways to reach out to me is on the Game Changers Instagram. That's GAME underscore changers, CHANGERS 758 on Instagram. Or you can reach out to my personal Instagram at Quinstar, QUINNSTAR 98 on Instagram. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And I just want to say Thank you again for being here with us, for giving up your valuable time, and for sharing so much with us. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners have as well. All the best to you, and have a good day. And let's meet again soon, okay?
For sure, for sure. I will not be a stranger. The next time that we have an interview, you have to be on my podcast so I can be the one interviewing you. How is that?
That sounds wonderful. I'm happy to do so. So we'll definitely talk about
Okay,
that.
for sure, for sure, for sure. Let's organize that.
Definitely. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.
All right, bye bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Begin, Build, Blossom, Your Business Journey, a CME Accounting LLC podcast. Please subscribe and be on the lookout for our next episode. If you'd like to share any feedback with us, please email us at podcast@cmeaccountingllc.com.